Welcome to the Conscious Investor. Let's get started. I'm totally excited. In fact, I know this episode is going to serve you well because we almost had a one-off. Well, we didn't get to record this episode. We'll explain why in just a moment, but I just want to first welcome Scott. Thank you so much for joining me on The Conscious Investor.
Hey, Julie, thank you so much for the invitation. I've been really looking forward to it, and I appreciate you taking the time to have me on the show.
I'm so excited about this as well. And I'm particularly excited because I think that you and I both had a little issue that came up this morning. And I think that we're going to help people feel like, oh, it's not just me. Okay. So I'm sitting here on Zoom like, oh, hey, where's Scott? And shoot him a text message like, hey, Scott, we're going to record. And then it's like, wait, I thought it was at 1:30. And I'm like, my calendar says 10:30. We're in different time zones and our calendars are like, has anybody else ever experienced the madness of technology?
Sometimes things happen, but we work through them, right?
And that's just it. Exactly it. So I told Scott, I'm like, all things work out. It's not a big deal at all. But I am glad to know, and I know that this is not the first time this has happened to me. It doesn't happen often. And so sometimes I'm on your end of things, right? Getting the phone call and I'm like, what? I had no idea. I thought. And so I just want to encourage anyone listening, now that we are a far more connected world and country across the US, we're dealing with our friends and partners and connections across different time zones. And if you're having any growing pains with that, it's not just you and it's not going to go away. Accidents happen. So be gracious and kind, right? Any other advice, Scott?
I think that's kind of two great words to live by: be gracious and kind, right? What else do you need?
Right, exactly. Scott, I know this probably isn't where you thought we were going to start, but I just have to high five another small town person. In fact, your small town that you grew up in is even smaller than where I'm raising my kids right now, which is a one-stop light town.
Oh, you have a stoplight. Wow,
we have a stoplight, man. We're high class.
We had one four-way stop sign where I grew up. And when we got a blinking red light, it was big news.
Yeah, the town probably like almost nearly shut down. What is that newfangled thing up there?
Who's blinking? Is it an airport? Why is there blinking lights? Yeah.
Right, exactly. Well, what is it like growing up in that kind of environment where it is a smaller community and a lot of people, you and I know because I currently live in one. I didn't grow up in a small town, but it's a different lifestyle than living outside San Francisco where I grew up, or in Denver, Colorado, where my kids were born, right? So tell me a little bit about how that has shaped your perspective on your real estate investing and how you're going about life.
Good question. So yeah, I grew up in a town. Looking back now, I don't remember for sure. I think we had like less than 5,000 people in the town, and literally my house was not the intersection, but it was on a gravel road, and it was big news when it got tar and chipped, not blacktop, but tar and chipped. And
know what you're talking about.
Most people won't, right? But we're surrounded by corn and beef fields, and we lived out in the country a little bit, even away from the big town. And so growing up, I was an only child for the most part growing up. I got a brother who was 10 years younger, but if I wanted to play, I had to get a ride into town. So that shaped how I guess learned to hang out with myself. And but I remember when I came, so I was the opposite of you. If you started in kind of bigger cities and now you live in a small city, I was just the opposite. I remember when I went to college in Indianapolis, I remember my dad saying quite a few times, and in fact, he still does remind me every now and then, he says, don't get your country butt in big city trouble. And
that is a great expression.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah. And for my part, I love the country. I love just the nature, being in nature, kind of getting away from the sounds and the busyness. I've come to love cities as well. But whether it's backpacking in the backcountry wilderness or just hanging out in small town USA, I think that's very special. But cities obviously have a lot to offer as well.
Yeah, they definitely have a lot to offer. That's why I like to travel. We travel a fair amount just because we want our kids to always have that like level of connection of how other people live, and there are these, like, there are cities and there are these other nuances to cities, and it's interesting.
That's absolutely one of my passions and our passions as well. As a family, we love to travel, whether it's around the US or internationally. I've had the incredible opportunity to spend quite a bit of time traveling different cultures, and that's absolutely something I want to. I'm trying my best to, make sure. We have one son who's 12 years old, to make sure he at some point internalizes that of, hey, how lucky we are to be where we are in the situation we are to have the life that we have. But there's a whole bunch of other people out there that they're just as happy as we are, but they don't have nearly as much, or their life looks a whole lot different. So trying to make them understand that and appreciate that is important to us.
Yeah, it's a critical narrative in their lives, especially as you look at how wealth is going to be transferred globally in their lifetime. Just how things will shift. That's just historically things shift. So I'm not saying this is a doom and gloom or anything like that. I'm just saying, hey, shifts are going to happen in their lifetime, and to prepare them for other people around the world, and what happiness is really based on and rooted from.
It's amazing. We've had the opportunity to do with my son one mission trip, and I've taken a few on my own with through our church. And you go to places where life looks a whole lot different because a family of 7 lives in a 12-foot diameter mud hut, but they got the biggest smiles you've ever seen on their faces, and they're loving life. Now their struggles are different than our struggles, but yeah, I think it's important to see that you can be happy even if you don't have that newest this or newest that from a material standpoint. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's such a grounding experience. When I was in high school, I lived in California, and we would travel down, as many church organizations do, over spring break. And we went down to Mexico, and I'll never forget, just the impact, because I grew up in a comfortable situation, not extravagant, not, it's just middle class vanilla, it's like, and so to go down and to see these people, these families living literally in houses made out of cardboard, dirt floors, crouched to get in, and how welcoming, how hospitable they were, and how happy they were. And they were proud to show their cardboard house to me. I'll never forget going in there and just thinking, these people are amazing, how they live, and the contentedness that they have found, and the welcoming and kindness that transcends the material possessions that they have.
Absolutely. Sometimes I think it's easy for us to think that we're on a higher level than someone else because of what our balance sheet might say or our checking account might show, but it's easy to see that that's not always the case, right? We've all got our struggles, certainly, but there's a lot to be happy for in the world.
So much. So how does all of this play into your investing strategy? Like, you've made some transitions with investing. You're now transitioning to focus on syndications. Why? Such a headache having to get investors. I'm kidding. I'm saying that as a tongue-in-cheek joke to my investors who are listening.
Absolutely. We love them.
You're
all.
The best.
So my journey started, I was an accounting major in college, and my first job out of college was with a Big 4 accounting firm, or Big 5, however many there were back then, and public accounting. And when I just the first year out of college, the person who was assigned as my mentor at that point, when we got together, we didn't talk about accounting, we talked about real estate, because he was really involved with rental properties, single family rental properties. He had roughly 100 houses at that point, and to me that was such a foreign concept. I didn't know that you could own a house that you didn't have to live in, and at that point I said, all right, I'll think about that, after let's tackle the CPA exam first. That has to be my priority, but I got that out of the way, and then started really diving in. He suggested a few books to read, and I did, and then just tried to learn as much as possible about that. And I specifically remember just riding around with him one day on a Saturday afternoon or something, and he took me around to show me, a few of his houses, and he's like, that one there, that's mine, and over there, that's mine, and that's mine. Like, I was thinking, like, how is this even possible?
Right.
I felt like if this were me, I'd be like, I own that house. That's my house. Like, getting
Right.
so excited about it. And he was so nonchalant, but I guess that was my introduction to, there's something more besides just the stock market and stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs. The standard thing that everyone hears about. Really, the only thing that most people hear about. So that was my introduction in that way. And uh, over the years, I got added up to maybe a few dozen, give or take, single family homes, some duplexes, some smaller apartment buildings. But it wasn't until just a few years ago, now 2, 3 years ago, I started to think, well, you know, I learned, how does someone take down bigger? How do you scale up? How is that even done? So that was another thought that I had of, I always thought it was just a big nameless, faceless corporation, perhaps, that certainly they're the ones that own these, because I could never do that. That's not for me. But knowing or learning a little bit more as I tried to spend a lot more time on it, I realized that's not the case at all. The reality is that, well, that does exist. There are institutions out there that are bankrolling a bunch of the larger commercial properties. But what I've learned is it's just as much, or a lot of normal people teaming up with other normal people to do something that none of us could do on our own, right? Just teaming up and forming a partnership and being bigger together than we could be on our own. And that's what I've really started to focus on now in the last 6 months or so of my life.
It's always an interesting transition when people have that aha moment and they see something bigger. And I'm going to put normal. I was like, normal in air quotes, right? So, okay, I want to ask a one-off question off of this, based off of what you just said, and that is, you're driving around with this gentleman. He's like, nonchalantly, that's mine, that's mine, that's mine. Basically, on the Monopoly board, he owns most of the places, right?
Well, it felt that way, yeah.
Right, it does, and we all know he doesn't, but like, it feels that way. It's like, oh my gosh, you own the Monopoly board. What is, when you look to the future, who would be what's the next level of the Monopoly board or the life board, or however you want to look at it? Like, what do you see that would be necessary to lift you to even the next level? And not that it's a value like better, worse, but like just aspiring into something greater.
For me, it's just kind of thinking about Monopoly. It's trading the greenhouses for the red hotels, or is it maybe I have the colors backwards, but
no, you got them four greenhouses. Now you can build your hotel.
Excellent. Well, that's kind of my mindset. Is I've been, for the most part, not 100%, but managing most of the sort of the single family and duplexes myself over the years, and I started to think, well, I'm kind of getting a little tired of that. That's not that the calls that I get of unhappy tenants because this or that happened, and hey, I told you about it 3 days ago, how come it's not completely fixed by now? Like, I'm trying, you don't understand, I'm stressing about this just as much as you are. But I'm starting to think that maybe I'd like to phase out of that a little bit more, and maybe get some professional managers to be able to handle that stress, so that I don't necessarily have to, at least not on the front lines. And that was the impetus, I guess, for wanting to learn what scale up even means, and how does someone do that, and who do you need to partner with in order to make that happen. So really, for me, I guess it's not necessarily that I want to go, because I really don't, historically, I haven't really told many people, or any people, unless they specifically ask about what I do on the real estate side. That's something I've just recently kind of a mindset shift of, that maybe what's worked well for me could benefit someone else as well. So start to think I should probably talk about it a little bit more than I ever have. But I've never felt like historically I felt like it's a little bit of bragging, hey, I do this, you don't. Haha, but that's not obviously the case at all.
I'm going to jump in and interject that having lived in a variety of different geographical regions, right, that have their own lifestyles to them, I think what I hear is so much of what happens within a small community. It's like where I live, it's like you got to do it all yourself. I jokingly say that women even, make their own seeds, which is obviously impossible, but it's like, it's such a, do it yourself. The fact that I'm going to hire somebody to build a deck for my house is probably like preposterous. Like, why aren't you sucking it up and going and getting your trees and making your own lumber and building your own deck, And
we gotta support the local economy too,
right? Exactly. So I'm painting a very extreme picture here, but even, I notice that a lot of people that are, in the single family, the small residential spaces, it is, well, I have to do it on my own. I need to manage, I need to do all of this, and it's my responsibility. Oh, I have this large portfolio, but I'm still going to do it. I can do it. It's fine. I got it. So like, how much do you think that mindset blends over? Am I reading any of that correct? Do you think that's part of your hard wiring as well coming out, or just your own thinking?
It's a good question. I guess I would say it's I've always been a little bit more on the side of, like what you mentioned, like I got this, I'll take care of it. And it hasn't necessarily been that I'm afraid to, partner with somebody in that regard, but I haven't made the opportunity. I probably had the opportunity at times, but I haven't really taken it or taken advantage of that. But just kind of learning if I want to scale up from a portfolio standpoint, and maybe get back a little bit more of my personal time, then that's what is really going to require, is reaching out and getting comfortable with bringing more people into the circle, and relying on their expertise, because it's not a secret, I'm not an expert at many things. So being able to bring other people that are good at what I'm not good at into the fold, or trying to team up with people who are already doing what I like to do, aspire to do, and leaning on their expertise. I think that's where my focus has been recently.
That's really exciting. I think that there's oftentimes this growth curve when people are making this transition into the multifamily space. It's like we already had this investment experience, and now it's taking it in this new capacity, and that companionship, really, that is what it, like, your partners, they're your companions on these deals, and it's like going into the backcountry wilderness backpacking with your buddies, and you've got to have each other's backs. Sometimes you're sharing resources because
Absolutely.
It's like we have a destination to get to, and we're going to do it together. So that's really exciting. What is one of the biggest hurdles that you've had to overcome, with your mindset shift?
In as it relates to real estate, or in what regards?
I know that was really open-ended, right?
Yeah, could probably go several different directions with that.
It really could. Well, let's start with real estate, but actually you could start with either or, whatever you would like to begin with. Like, it could be a real estate, or could just be a personal mindset shift.
Something that comes to mind, and it kind of crosses both the intersection of both real estate and more like business life and life in general. About 10 years ago, my family, we were going, my wife and I, and at that point we had about a 3-year-old son. That was probably the lowest point in our time together, and it's because my wife at the time was a 4th grade teacher, and she was job sharing half day, work half day every day with her best friend. His name is Tiffany, and at that point, Tiffany, out of the blue, age 33, I think, was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer, and that took a huge toll, emotional toll, a time toll on certainly on their family, but on our family as well, because Tiffany and her family they were such good friends of ours, personal level. Um, and so that was like in February of that year of 2012. And um, Denise, my wife, took some time off from teaching that summer, helping Tiffany going through her all of her treatments. That she, of course, that was her full-time job starting at that point, is figure out how to get better, to get rid of this sickness. And then neither one of them went back to teaching in the fall. They got some time off for a little bit of a sabbatical to figure out what they want to do. Denise was trying to figure out, does she go back to teaching full-time? Does she find someone else to teach part-time with? But anyways, she during that time off, she was volunteering at the Ronald McDonald House, which is downtown Indianapolis here, and found that she just asked kind of a generic question, asked if anyone there had a chance or saw a need that wasn't being fit or wasn't being met from their services, which they allow kids who are going through terrible medical issues to stay there. And then the families, of course, are able to stay there as well. And they said, well, we get calls from adults sometimes asking if they can stay here, and we feel bad we have to tell them no, because this is for kids who are the patients. And they say we don't have any good opportunities or options for them, so we'll get a hotel. Hotels are expensive in the city, and $20-$30 a day for parking, and you got to go out to restaurants for all your meals.
When
So
you
Denise,
might not, when you don't even feel like going out to a restaurant, like
you've got
when you're battling like that, you're just like, and I haven't had that level of a battle, but let's just all think that when we had COVID, I know you were in quarantine when we spoke, like, well, the
yes.
whole world, sorry, we can edit that out. No, but when we're sick, I mean, we just want to stay at home and get better, and to have to go out and do things. Yeah, exactly. It's like, no, we just want to be in a home.
Absolutely. You got so many things going on, life all of a sudden is a whirlwind, and you got the most important things to focus on is getting better when you're sick, right? So Denise and I were talking later that day. I remember it like it was yesterday, on a bike ride later that night. She mentioned that conversation, and a light bulb just kind of went off in my head and maybe her head at the same time. Like, they see this need, that people need a place to stay in Indianapolis when they come, for medical treatment. And like, hey, we've got this background. At that point, I've been doing, rental properties for about 10 years. We're probably not going to buy a, high-rise apartment downtown in the city, but why don't we kind of start small but dream big? Let's buy a house and let adults focus on adults and their families to stay there when they come to Indianapolis for treatment. And of course, because her friend Tiffany was going through cancer treatments at the time, that was an easy transition to say, hey, let's offer this for cancer patients as they come to Indianapolis for treatments, because it's a fantastic place. People come from all over the country for treatment. And that's from that day forward, we were working on it, and we ended up forming a 501c3 charity. It's called the Sun Foundation. We've had incredible people help us set it up, and it's today we've served over 6,000 nights of free lodging for people who come to Indianapolis for treatment. And you're right, they want a home away from home. They want that comfort level, because they got plenty of other things to worry about. So the real estate is what made that possible. It wasn't scary. We didn't have any knowledge about the hospitality business. We had no idea what we were doing. Had never started a charity, had never, learned about fundraising for a charity or anything, but we just one foot in front of the other, one step by step, and the right people came to us at the right time to help make that a reality.
That's absolutely amazing. When you think about the progression and how, when we're willing to allow like, sometimes, let me back up a little bit. So everybody looks at circumstances like, okay, this event happened, now what? And we get to decide what the narrative is, how it carries out. During the pandemic, it was a very difficult time for many people. It turned out to be a very huge gift in my life, and it was a gift of opportunity. But it was because of a focus I chose to, okay, I'm going to focus on these things because they're positive, and I have no control over these over here. So I'm going to focus on this. And here you have extremely, someone who's basically, family suffering, and
Yes.
there are lots of question marks. And instead of going into that sorrow, and that, you know, that would be very easy to go into. It's like, oh wait, we have an opportunity here. And now 6,000 nights late, 6,000 plus nights later, you've had this tremendous contribution to the world.
You know, I think that's what you said is very important. We can't always control what happens to us, but you know, you can control your reaction to it, right? So in that case, we certainly never set out to start a charity that owned you know, it's a six bedroom, four bath house downtown Indianapolis, and never would have dreamed, you know, before that day of you know, providing essentially a hospitality house for people. And like I said, we didn't know what we were doing, but when the idea came, it was like, well, that's clearly what we've been praying about, trying to figure out what the next step is. You know, that's light bulb moment, certainly. And from that point on, it was, this is where we're supposed to do. Let's figure out what we're supposed to do. Let's figure out how to do it, and take advantage of, life throws you lemons, make lemonade, right?
It's always an opportunity. And there, I think anyone listening right now, I mean, you have these circumstances that happen. Like when my dad drops dead, I could have chosen to just like, my true north is gone. And there are so many ways I could have chosen to go, but because of the hope I have in my faith, through my faith, it's like, I can see this, and I was able to use that as a positive momentum. Like we all have a choice when the chips are down. We have a choice as to how we move forward and proceed forward. And when we do that in constructive ways, it usually leads to extraordinary opportunities like this that are reach far beyond our life, like where we would have reached on our own.
That's 100. I 100% agree. And you know, that's not to belittle or to say that it's ever easy. You know, just because you have difficult situations, and
It's never
get over
easy.
it, make it better. You know, it's okay to grieve and to, you know, struggle with it. But yeah, I think it's in the mindset of how do you, you know, in due time, how do you get past that? How do you take that and make yourself stronger? And you know, maybe if you have an opportunity, make the world better along with it. You know, at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's interesting. There's a relationship where you can, I've learned to, like, you can sit with it all at once. Like you might not be able to make circumstances go away, and they might be really uncomfortable or miserable, or they could be all sorts of this, but you get to a point where you can just sit with it and be like, it just is. My son watches this YouTuber and he puts his hands out, is like, yes.
I've seen a commercial about that. I have no idea what it means.
Right. So, I'll have to send you a link. Well, where do you see, as you focus on syndications now? And I love that when we spoke, and my daughter is at violin lessons, and I'm in the hallway talking with you, and
Yeah.
and actually that was my turn, because I think I called you at the wrong time or something. So apparently it's me. It's
This
totally
is payback
me.
today.
I'm just gonna say it's all me. But you know, you have such a heart for service, and it's shared with your wife and everything. Like, how will you continue service through your investing? And because I feel like you're the kind of person where that's going to naturally just be part of it. So is that part of it? What's that look like if it is?
Yeah, one of the things that I've realized lately is, you know, I learned several years ago about how to be essentially a limited partner investor in, you know, a bigger syndication model of to go and to be able to point at, you know, an apartment building or a, you know, whatever it is, and say, hey, I own that. That's kind of cool. I mean, you don't have to tell people I only own 1 or 2% of it, but you're an owner. And one of the things that I've realized recently is that was a fantastic moment for me to realize that that's even a possibility in the realm of investing and, you know, diversifying a portfolio away from stock market. And I think there's a lot more people out there that would love the opportunity to learn more about that, but they just haven't been made aware that opportunity even exists. So one thing that I am excited about is trying to speak to as many people as possible in my circle, and you know, if nothing else, just give them that seed of this realm of possibility is out there, and it's up to them to decide, if it works for them or if they're interested or not. But I think it can be certainly something that's beneficial for more people than I realize now, and maybe more people than even they realize, once they learn about this new opportunity.
I know, and new air quotes. We'll put that in air quotes since
Yeah,
it's been proven over history in
absolutely.
other countries as well as landowners are, usually people that have a very stable lifestyle. Culturally speaking, owning land is owning properties like real estate is very empowering for people. And I agree with you completely, where it's a matter of we can be the messengers. And I always view myself that way, as I'm a messenger. I can't make anyone. It's the same thing for my faith. It's the same thing for my investing. It's the same thing for my coaching. It's like, I can give you this opportunity, but the opportunity is only as good as someone who cashes in on the ticket. Like, I give you a ticket to go to the Super Bowl. If you don't go, you missed out.
No, absolutely. And
So
it reminds, like, I was telling you, my mentor from back, 20 plus years ago. I was definitely not the only person that he said, hey, you should think about investing in real estate. But I talked to him now. I asked him years ago, how many other people, kind of took you up on the offer? He said, hey, I think you're the only one. Or maybe there was,
wow.
one or two other people that got into it a little bit, but it wasn't a focus, and they would dabble a little bit, but certainly nothing long term. So yeah, you can, different things for different people, of course, but I think it's an incredible opportunity to so it certainly changed my life, both professionally and and that affects your personal life too, because it's given our family opportunities to do things. I mentioned we love travel. I know for a fact that a lot of the travel we've done, we couldn't have done without being interested or involved with real estate for the last 20 years.
It's absolutely, absolutely amazing. Goodness. If you're listening, I want to direct you to the YouTube channel, the Conscious Investor YouTube channel. There's a playlist. And if you're still trying to figure out, hey, should I invest in, real estate? I created a playlist specifically for one of my investors, not a playlist, but a learning session. So go to the playlist, go to the learning sessions, and it's called Transitioning Your Portfolio from Stocks to Real Estate. And it really explains things well. It's someone I respect tremendously, Steve Breton, that is presenting the information. And so if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, I'm on the fence, but I still really want to go this one way with my investing, this will give you a great idea of diversifying that investment. And then you're going to circle back and you're going to say, man, Scott's really grounded. This resonates with me. And Scott is in the middle of making the transition from single family into multifamily, not from investing, but in the sense of his website is under construction. It'll probably be
It'll
ready.
be done soon.
It'll be done soon. So probably finished by the time this comes out. So Scott, okay, let's give them the website, but then also maybe another way, email address or whatever you prefer to connect with you.
Certainly. So the company's called Onward Equity, and the website is pretty much Onward Equity with a hyphen in between. So onward-equity.com, and that would probably be the easiest way to get in touch. There's several buttons on there that say schedule a call or to learn more, and from that point you can either have a phone call or schedule a phone call or send an email, that kind of thing. But the email address would be scott@onward-equity.com.
That's awesome. Scott, is there anything else you want to add as we wrap up?
Mainly, I just think that I've encouraged everyone to, think more about the long term, and be willing to explore more than what you just already know. Never stop learning and educating yourself about everything, I guess. But if you think you have any kind of desire at all to be invested in real estate, there's so many great ways to learn more about it, and take some time to learn more about it, and then and then act upon it, because you can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you don't do something about it, then you're still where you were. So for me, that was the biggest step and the most incredible, literally life-changing thing for me, is when I realized that, hey, I feel like a nobody. I came from the crossroad of two gravel roads surrounded by cornfields, right? But I can do this, and you can't necessarily do it on your own. Find people that have done it before, and learn from them. Don't be afraid, because most people want to help you. They want to share their knowledge, and we've all got knowledge to share, and we've all got people that we need to learn from as well to further our professional and personal lives.
And it's the friendliest investment space on the face of the earth. So if you are still making that transition, if you're, one of my listeners who's primarily listening for the mindset episodes, and you dabble into these investing, sessions, just know, hey, it's a very grounded, very positive space, and people are always seeking to serve and help everyone else. So the power of contribution. And dang, things are so much more fun working together, partnering with other people. It just makes the whole process. It's like reaching a summit and being there solo. There are a few times where I've enjoyed a solo summit just because I needed that for my own grounding moments. But primarily, it's so much more fun being at the top of other people.
Life is more fun surrounded by people you enjoy and you love, and I think those are great words.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, amazing listeners, for staying with us. And please make sure that you go and connect up with Scott on the website. If you can't somehow figure that out, shoot him an email and let him know. Until next time, live big, love bigger. What's the big deal about investing in apartments? Why is it better than investing in a slew of single-family homes? I've compiled a lot of information on why investing in multifamily, also known as apartments, will help you reach your investment goals. Head over to 3keysinvestments.com and download the Why Invest in Multifamily guide today.